My name is Jewel, and I am 54 years old. 6 months ago, I sat at my son's dinner table, believing I was a good mother-in-law. I never interfered. I never complained. I gave everything I had. But one sentence from my daughter-in-law changed everything I thought I knew about kindness and sacrifice. Sometimes, the most painful lessons come from the people we love the most. And sometimes, those lessons set us free. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. Now, stay with me through this journey, because I believe many of you have walked in similar shoes. I live in a quiet suburb outside Nashville, Tennessee. For 32 years, I worked at an insurance company, processing claims and helping families during their most difficult moments. I retired 3 years ago, thinking I would finally have time to enjoy life. My husband, Harold, passed away from a heart attack 8 years ago. We had been married for 26 years when he left this world. After he was gone, I stayed in our 3-bedroom house, the same one we bought together back in 1992. The mortgage was paid off, and every corner of that house held memories of our life together. Harold and I had one child, a son named Marcus. He is 31 years old now, but in my heart, he is still the little boy who used to run into our bedroom during thunderstorms. After Harold died, I raised Marcus alone through his final years of college. He studied accounting, but after graduation, he took a sales job that paid much less than we had hoped. I never complained. I told myself he was finding his way. I supported him financially whenever he needed it, because that is what mothers do. 3 years ago, Marcus brought home a girlfriend named Brittany. She was 28 years old, blonde, beautiful, and worked at an upscale spa downtown. Our first meeting was at a restaurant Marcus chose. Brittany talked a lot about herself that evening. She told me about her skincare routines, her favorite designers, her dreams of traveling to Europe. She asked me very little about my life. I noticed, but I told myself not to judge too quickly. Young people are sometimes nervous meeting their partner's parents. 2 years ago, Marcus announced he wanted to marry Brittany. I was happy for him. Every mother wants to see her child find love. But then came the wedding plans. Brittany wanted a large celebration at a resort by the lake. The estimated cost was $45,000. Her parents lived in Florida, and when Marcus asked them to contribute, they said they could not afford it. Brittany's mother, Donna, sent a card with $50 inside. I looked at my retirement savings. I looked at my son's hopeful face. I wrote a check for $25,000. I told myself it was an investment in his happiness. I never mentioned the sacrifice. I never asked for thanks. I simply smiled at the wedding and watched my son dance with his new wife. After the honeymoon, Marcus and Brittany rented an apartment in downtown Nashville. The rent was $2,200 per month. Marcus's salary could not cover all their expenses. Brittany said her income from the spa was unpredictable. One month, she made good money. The next month, almost nothing. Marcus called me with embarrassment in his voice and asked if I could help. I offered to pay $1,000 toward their rent each month. Later, when they said costs had increased, I raised it to $1,300. For 22 months, I transferred money into their account. That is $28,600 total. I kept no record because I trusted my son. I never mentioned the money when we spoke. I thought love meant giving without keeping score. I believed my silent sacrifices would be seen and appreciated. I did not realize that some people measure love differently. The first time I felt something was wrong happened 6 months after the wedding. I drove to their apartment with a casserole dish, the same recipe Marcus had loved since childhood. It was his favorite comfort food, something I made for every special occasion when he was growing up. Brittany opened the door and looked at the dish in my hands. Her nose wrinkled slightly. She said Marcus had switched to clean eating now. She asked if I did not know that. Her tone suggested I should have known. Marcus stood behind her and said nothing. I smiled and said I would remember for next time. I drove home and put the casserole in my own refrigerator. I ate it alone for the next 4 days. That first Christmas after their wedding, I invited them to my house for dinner. Brittany said they would come, but could only stay 2 hours because they had a party with friends afterward. I spent 3 days preparing. I cleaned every room. I cooked Harold's mother's recipes. I set the table with our wedding china. They arrived 40 minutes late. During dinner, Brittany checked her phone constantly. She answered my questions with 1 or 2 words. When I gave her my gift, a pearl necklace that had belonged to my grandmother, she held it up and said it was an interesting vintage style. I saw disappointment in her eyes. She wanted something new, something expensive, something from a store with a famous name. I kept smiling. I told her the pearls had been in our family for 4 generations. After that Christmas, my invitations began receiving rejections. I asked them to dinner to celebrate their first anniversary. Brittany said they already had plans. I offered to take them on a weekend trip to the mountains. Brittany said she did not enjoy traditional destinations. Every time I called, Brittany answered and said Marcus was busy. She promised he would call back. He rarely did. I shared my concerns with my oldest friend, Linda. We had known each other since high school, over 40 years of friendship. Linda listened to everything and then looked me straight in the eyes. She said Brittany was isolating Marcus from me. She said she had seen this pattern before. I defended my daughter-in-law. I said I did not want to become one of those interfering mothers-in-law that everyone complains about. I said I respected their space and their marriage. Linda shook her head slowly. She told me there was a difference between respecting boundaries and being used. She said I needed to open my eyes before it was too late. I did not believe her. I thought she was being overly negative. I thought time would improve everything. I noticed how differently Brittany treated her own mother. When Donna called from Florida, Brittany's voice transformed completely. She laughed freely. She called her mommy with genuine affection. She chatted for an hour about nothing and everything. When she hung up, her face glowed with happiness. When I called, I received short answers and quick goodbyes. I wondered what I had done wrong. I searched my memory for any offense I might have committed. I found nothing. I had only ever given. My birthday arrived in March. I turned 54 years old. I woke up that morning wondering if Marcus would call. I checked my phone throughout the day. I kept it close during breakfast, during lunch, during my afternoon walk. No call came. No text message appeared. By evening, I accepted that my son had forgotten. At 8:30, my phone finally rang. Marcus apologized. He said work had been crazy and he lost track of the date. In the background, I heard Brittany laughing loudly with someone. Music was playing. They were clearly at a party, not working late. Marcus promised we would celebrate the following weekend. That weekend came and went. He never mentioned my birthday again. 2 weeks later, I invited them to dinner at a nice restaurant. I planned to pay for everything as usual. At the table, Brittany ordered the most expensive steak on the menu. She added a premium wine pairing. She ordered dessert without asking about the price. During the meal, I tried to ask about their lives. Brittany gave brief answers without looking up from her phone. Then she began talking about her mother, Donna. She said Donna had just sent her a beautiful Gucci handbag. She described it in detail, the leather, the gold hardware, the waiting list to purchase one. I knew Donna worked as a receptionist at a dental office. I knew she claimed to have no money for the wedding. I wondered who had actually paid for that handbag. I suspected it was Marcus using money that came partially from me. I said nothing. I paid the $500 bill and drove home in silence. 1 month later, Marcus called me with hesitation in his voice. He explained that their rent had increased again. He asked if I could contribute an additional $300 monthly. I agreed immediately. I did not mention that this would cut deeply into my retirement budget. I did not mention that I had started skipping my weekly hair appointments to save money. After we hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen. Harold's photograph watched me from the wall. I wondered if he would be proud of how I raised our son, or if he would be disappointed in what our boy had become. The truth about their finances came to me by accident. I was scrolling through social media when I saw Brittany's post. She had shared photographs from their vacation in Cancun, Mexico. The pictures showed them at a 5-star resort, drinking cocktails by an infinity pool, eating at expensive restaurants with ocean views. I calculated quickly in my head. That vacation must have cost at least $5,000, perhaps more. This was the same couple who told me they could not afford their rent without my help. This was the same daughter-in-law who complained about money every time we spoke. My hands trembled as I closed the app. I felt foolish. I felt used. But still, I said nothing. My younger sister, Patricia, came to visit me the following week. She is 52 years old and has always been the more direct one in our family. I told her everything. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to cry. Patricia's reaction was immediate and fierce. She said I was being exploited. She asked how I could not see what was happening. She urged me to have an honest conversation with Marcus, to set boundaries to demand respect. I told her I was afraid. I feared losing my son. I feared being labeled a difficult mother-in-law. I feared that speaking up would push Marcus away forever. Patricia took my hands in hers. Her eyes were sad but firm. She said I was afraid of losing my son, but the truth was I had already lost him. I just did not realize it yet. Her words haunted me for many nights, but I still could not find the courage to act. That courage would come from an unexpected source. The invitation arrived on a Friday afternoon. Marcus called to say Brittany wanted to cook dinner for me at their apartment. His voice sounded genuinely happy. He said they wanted to spend quality time together as a family. I was surprised but hopeful. Perhaps Patricia and Linda had been wrong. Perhaps my patience was finally paying off. Perhaps Brittany was ready to build a real relationship with me. I prepared carefully for the evening. I chose a nice dress that I usually saved for special occasions. I bought a bottle of expensive wine and a bouquet of fresh flowers. I wanted everything to be perfect. I arrived at 7 o'clock exactly. Their apartment looked different from my last visit. New furniture filled the living room. A large television hung on the wall. The coffee table appeared to be genuine marble. None of these items were cheap. Brittany greeted me at the door with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Marcus hugged me warmly. The dining table was set beautifully with candles and flowers. For a moment, I felt my heart lift with hope. Dinner was steak and salad. The food was good. The conversation started normally. Marcus talked about a new project at work. Brittany mentioned some drama at the spa. I complimented the apartment, the meal, everything I could think of. I wanted this evening to succeed. For the first 30 minutes, everything seemed fine. I began to relax. I sipped my wine and listened to their stories. I thought perhaps this was a turning point. Then Brittany's phone rang. She checked the screen and announced it was her mother calling. She excused herself and walked to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. Marcus and I sat in awkward silence. I asked him about his health, his friends, his plans for the summer. He answered in short sentences, glancing toward the bedroom door. 10 minutes passed. 15 minutes. Finally, Brittany returned. Her expression had changed completely. The artificial warmth was gone. Something hard had settled in her eyes. She sat down heavily and picked up her wine glass. I asked if everything was all right with her mother. Brittany did not answer directly. Instead, she said her mother had just told her some difficult news. Donna had been forced to sell her old car because she could not afford the repairs. Brittany's voice carried an edge I had not heard before. Then she looked directly at me. She said her mother had sacrificed everything for her children. She said Donna never held on to money for herself when her family needed help. She paused and added that some people were not like that. Some people kept their money and their big houses while their children struggled. I felt the blood drain from my face. I understood exactly who she meant. I tried to keep my voice steady. I said I did not understand what she was implying. Brittany laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. She said she thought I understood perfectly. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. He said her name quietly, asking her to stop. But she was not finished. She stood up from her chair. Her voice rose. She said, I sat in my paid-off house with my retirement savings while they could barely afford their apartment. She said, I gave them just enough money to feel good about myself, but not enough to actually help. She said I was selfish and cold. I sat frozen, unable to process what I was hearing. $28,000 in rent support, $25,000 for the wedding, countless dinners, gifts, and offerings of love. And this woman was calling me selfish. Then came the words that would change everything. Brittany pointed her finger at me. Her face was flushed with anger. She said I was not even half the woman her mother was. She shouted it. The words echoed off the walls of their expensive apartment, the apartment I helped pay for each month. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the candle flames seemed to stop flickering. I looked at Marcus. He sat with his mouth open, his eyes wide, but he said nothing. Not one word in my defense. Not one syllable to protect his mother. Something inside me shifted. Something that had been stretched too thin for too long finally snapped. But it was not broken. It was released. I placed my napkin on the table slowly. I pushed my chair back from the table. I stood up with a calmness I did not know I possessed. I looked at Brittany steadily. My voice came out clear and controlled. I told her that if her mother was such a wonderful woman, then she could start paying their rent. Marcus made a choking sound. His face went pale. I continued speaking. I said I had paid $1,300 every month for 22 months. That was nearly $30,000. I said I had given $25,000 for their wedding. A wedding her wonderful mother contributed $50 to. Brittany's mouth opened and closed. She stammered that this was my obligation, that parents were supposed to help their children. I picked up my purse. I told her that what I gave was love, not obligation. But love does not mean accepting insults at dinner tables. I told them that, starting next month, my financial support would end. If her mother was so superior, Brittany should call her for help. I walked to the door. Marcus finally found his voice. He called out to me, asking me to wait. I did not wait. I did not look back. I walked out of that apartment and into the cool night air. I drove home in complete silence. No radio, no tears, not yet. The tears would come later, in the privacy of my own home, in the house my husband and I had built our life in. But at that moment, driving through the Nashville streets, I felt something I had not felt in years. I felt like myself again. The first 3 days after that dinner were the quietest of my life. My phone did not ring. No text messages appeared. Marcus did not reach out to apologize or explain. The silence confirmed what I had suspected. He had chosen sides, and he had not chosen me. I filled those days with small tasks. I cleaned closets that had needed attention for years. I organized old photographs. I cooked meals just for myself, using recipes I actually enjoyed, rather than what I thought others would want. Linda came by on the second day. She had heard about the dinner through the mysterious way that news travels among old friends. She brought chocolate cake and strong coffee. She told me I had done the right thing. She said she was proud of me for finally standing up. I told her I did not feel proud. I felt sad and empty and foolish for giving so much to people who valued me so little. Linda held my hand and reminded me that recognizing the truth, even late, was still a victory. On the fourth day, Marcus called. His voice sounded exhausted, older somehow. He asked if we could meet. He said he needed to talk to me face to face. We met at a coffee shop near my house. I arrived first and chose a table by the window. When Marcus walked in, I barely recognized him. Dark circles hung under his eyes. His shoulders slumped forward. He looked like a man who had not slept in days. He sat across from me and immediately began apologizing. He said he had been a coward. He said he should have defended me. He said he had no excuse for his silence. I listened without interrupting. I had waited a long time for these words. Marcus told me what happened after I left that night. Brittany had exploded with rage. She blamed him for not controlling me. She demanded that he fix the situation and get the money flowing again. She called her mother Donna and asked for financial help. Donna's response had shocked them both. She said she had no money to give. She said she was barely managing her own bills. The luxury items she supposedly sent Brittany had actually been purchased by Marcus himself, using credit cards to make Brittany happy and to maintain her illusions about her family. Marcus said the truth had been hiding in plain sight. Brittany's mother had never supported them financially, not once. The entire narrative about Donna's generosity was fantasy. The only parent who had ever helped them was me. He admitted that Brittany had controlled their finances from the beginning. She spent money on clothes, handbags, salon treatments, and vacations, while telling him they could not afford basics. She ran up credit card debt without telling him. The vacation to Cancun was paid with borrowed money they still owed. Marcus put his head in his hands. He said he had been blind. He said Brittany had slowly separated him from everyone who loved him. His friends had stopped calling because she complained about them. His mother was pushed away because she represented a threat to Brittany's control. Then Marcus mentioned his father. He asked if I remembered what Harold said before he died. I nodded. Harold had made Marcus promise to take care of me, to never let anyone hurt me. Tears ran down my son's face. He said he had broken that promise. He had watched someone insult me and did nothing. He said his father would be ashamed of him. I reached across the table and held his hands. I told him Harold loved him. I told him I loved him. I said that recognizing mistakes is the first step toward fixing them. Marcus wiped his eyes. He told me he had moved out of the apartment 3 days ago. He was staying with a co-worker until he could figure out his next steps. Brittany had given him an ultimatum. Either he convinced me to resume payments, or she would file for divorce. For the first time during our conversation, I saw something new in my son's eyes. It was clarity. He said he could not be married to someone who built their relationship on using other people. I did not tell him what to do. That was not my place. I only told him that whatever he decided, I would love him and support him. Marcus took a deep breath. He said he had already made his decision. He would not ask me for money. He would not beg someone to restore the funding that allowed his wife to insult his mother. He said if that meant divorce, then maybe divorce was the right answer. We sat together for another hour. We talked about his father, about the old days, about everything we had stopped sharing over the past few years. When we finally stood to leave, Marcus hugged me tighter than he had since he was a teenager. I drove home, feeling something I had almost forgotten. Hope. The months following that coffee shop conversation brought changes I never expected. I decided to use the money I had been sending to Marcus and Brittany for something different. I would invest in myself. I signed up for a painting class at the community center. I had always wanted to try art but never had the time or the confidence. Now, I had both. Every Tuesday evening, I stood before a canvas and learned to create something from nothing. I joined a yoga class at the local gym. The stretches and poses were challenging at first, but slowly, my body remembered how to move with purpose. I felt stronger than I had in years. At the library, I discovered a book club that met every other week. The members were mostly women around my age, all of them interesting, all of them happy to welcome a new friend into their circle. In my painting class, I met Margaret. She was 58 years old, widowed like me, with silver hair and a warm laugh. She had her own story about a difficult daughter-in-law, her own journey of setting boundaries, her own path to peace. We began meeting for coffee after class. Margaret understood things that others could not. She told me something I have never forgotten. She said we have no obligation to purchase love from anyone. Real love is given freely, or it is not love at all. 2 months after the dinner confrontation, Marcus called with news. He and Brittany had officially separated. She had moved back to Florida to live with her mother, Donna. The irony was sharp and satisfying. The same mother who supposedly gave so generously now shared a small rented room with her adult daughter. Marcus found a smaller apartment, a one-bedroom place in a less fashionable neighborhood. He paid the rent himself from his own salary. For the first time in his adult life, he was completely independent. Our relationship transformed. Marcus called me every Sunday evening without fail. He came to my house on weekends to help with yard work and minor repairs. We cooked dinner together using Harold's old recipes, talking about memories we had not shared in years. One evening, as we washed dishes side by side, Marcus apologized again. He said he was sorry for wasting so many years keeping distance between us. He said Brittany had convinced him I was controlling, that I wanted to interfere in their marriage, that I judged her constantly. I asked him why he believed those things. He said he did not know. He said it was easier to believe her than to question her. He said he was ashamed of how easily he was manipulated. I told him shame was not useful. Learning was useful. Growing was useful. Shame only kept us stuck in the past. I decided to keep my house the same house Brittany once suggested I should sell, so they could use the money for a down payment on a bigger place. Instead, I planted a garden in the backyard, filling it with the flowers Harold had always loved. Every morning, I sat by the kitchen window with my coffee watching the garden grow. I discovered that happiness does not require anyone else's approval or appreciation. Happiness grows from within, like flowers, from seeds we plant ourselves. 6 months have now passed since that dinner. Marcus finalized his divorce last month. He seems lighter now, like someone who has put down a heavy burden. He got promoted at work and is earning more than ever before. He told me he finally feels like the man his father raised him to be. I am still living in my house, still painting on Tuesdays, still doing yoga on Thursday mornings. Margaret and I took a trip to Savannah, Georgia, last month. We walked along the river, ate too much good food, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. I think often about what happened at that dinner table. The words that seemed so cruel at the time now seem almost like a gift. Brittany told me I was not half the woman her mother was. She meant it as an insult, but she accidentally told me a truth. I am not her mother. I am not someone who takes without giving. I am not someone who teaches my children to use others. I am not someone who claims generosity while offering nothing. I am Jewel. I am a woman who loved too much without protecting herself. I am a woman who finally learned that kindness must have boundaries to have meaning. I am a woman who discovered that saying no can be an act of love. I do not hate Brittany. I genuinely do not. She was shaped by her upbringing, by her mother's example, by a worldview that measured love in dollars and possessions. I hope she finds peace someday. I hope she learns what real generosity looks like before it is too late. But her education is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to myself and to the people who truly value my presence in their lives. If you are listening to this story and you recognize yourself in it, I want to tell you something important. Your kindness is precious. Do not waste it on people who see it as weakness. Do not empty yourself trying to fill cups that have holes in the bottom. Standing up for yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. Setting boundaries is not mean. It is healthy. Saying no to exploitation is not abandoning your loved ones. It is teaching them to respect you. The most important lesson I learned from my daughter-in-law's brutal insult was not about her at all. It was about me. It was about knowing my own worth, even when others refuse to see it. I sit by my window now, watching the evening light fall across Harold's garden. The flowers are blooming beautifully this year. My son is coming for dinner tomorrow. My friend Margaret invited me to an art show next weekend. Life is not perfect. It never was. But it is good. It is peaceful. It is mine. Brittany told me I was not half the woman her mother was. She was right, but not in the way she intended. I am not half of anything. I am whole. and I am finally free. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever given so much that you forgot your own value? Have you ever let someone make you feel small because you were afraid of losing them? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories help others feel less alone in their struggles. If this video touched your heart, please give it a like. If you want more stories like this, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, please share this video with them. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening. I wish you the courage to know your worth, the strength to protect your peace, the wisdom to give your love to those who truly deserve it. Take care of yourselves. You are worth it.